So we'll continue from the last class on Monte Carlo policy control. So we actually covered this Monte Carlo policy control last time. Let's just quickly go over it. We initialize state action probabilities arbitrarily. We initialize state action values arbitrarily. Okay, and we initialize the number of count of samples for state action pairs, and then we choose a starting point a0 s0. We said that we may want to do that to support exploring start. We generate an episode following pi, and then for each state we each step, actually each step t from this to that, t backtracking. I should correct that to step, sorry, I should correct that to step. Then update the state action value q, um, just update the average and update the count, right? So, and finally we can update the policy according to argmax a with the highest state action value. Now, one of the possible issues we also discussed last time, that if this kind of makes the policy deterministic, and eventually what will happen is that you will stop exploring. And so then one solution is exploring start. So for every episode, exploring start, what it does is it makes a starting pair of action and state random. That means random means for all state action pairs the probability is greater than 0. So since we are going to do this infinitely, we'll keep learning. There will be always for all state action pairs, there will be some times when I start with that, that is theoretically the point. Okay, so now obviously last time we also when we finished the discussion, we also noticed that this may not be a complete solution to the problem, because first of all it is just start of the episode, and then there are actually more problems that it may not be possible for uh, it may not be possible for an agent to start at a random state action pair. Okay, so we'll see why. So so instead what we'll do, we'll see another alternative that is similar to our epsilon greedy policy that we saw in multi-arm bandit case, and you have implemented that also, so you pretty much know this. So epsilon greedy, what this does is with probability epsilon, so epsilon is actually a small number. It's between 0 and 1, but it better be more close to 0 than more close to 1. That's what it is. So with probability, high probability, you take the greedy action. And with the epsilon probability, you take a random action. Random means, in this case, what we said is all actions have the same probability. Okay, so it is random uniform. What we basically meant is choose an action uniformly at random. So that was the implementation detail. Now, this essentially means, if you generalize this slightly, what this means is, if the number of actions is, the set of actions is this A, then the number of actions is mod A, I mean the size of the set, then all actions in this case has probability epsilon by A, size of A, right? I mean, all actions have probability means, not given that you have already come to this tree, this subtree from here, from the original state. If you think from here, then the probability of all actions have the probability that that may be chosen, and that probability is epsilon by size of A. But the action which has the highest q, that has a higher probability. So that is this much plus the 1 minus epsilon, basically, right? So that's what it is. So this is what we did for epsilon greedy. Now, can we also do the same thing? And the epsilon greedy actually is a specific case of class of policies called epsilon soft. So what is epsilon soft? Epsilon soft is, suppose on this axis you have the actions, all possible actions. In some cases in the book you will see A in bracket S. It just means that all actions which you can take from state S. So when I'm writing, in most cases I omit that S. It is implicitly assumed that, well, from some state S, not all possible actions may be, not all actions may be possible. It just means that whichever actions are possible from that. So if in this axis, if you draw all the actions, and here if you think about the probability of taking an action, so something like this. So something like this means you have a threshold epsilon. All actions must have probability more than or equal to epsilon. So all actions must have probability greater than equal to, sorry, it shouldn't be really epsilon, but this epsilon by this epsilon by this size. But you know the number of possible actions beforehand, so you can tune that factor into epsilon. So this needs a correction, but the idea is the same. So all actions have probability greater than equal to epsilon by the size of the set. Okay, so this, if a policy has this property, then that is called epsilon soft policy. Now, exploring start, the problem was that we cannot always ensure that we can start at any state action pair. For example, self-driving car, uh, mm, a particular state can be that another car is coming from the front and a likely head-on collision, right? So but you cannot start from there, right? You cannot really set that as a start in realistic scenario, right? So you typically always start from stationary and so on, right? So or no, you can think about many other scenarios uh, such that a start is not possible from that state action pair. What but then you need to actually keep exploring. So what you need to do is you need to keep exploring instead of only rely on the start. And there this epsilon soft policies come into help. So the epsilon soft approach helps, which ensures that you keep exploring always, right? So let's actually look at how that policy can be made into our algorithm. So this is the algorithm which is not epsilon soft. This is the algorithm we have done already, right? So Monte Carlo policy control. This is what we just started today in the class as well. Now we'll need to make a couple of changes. One is remove the exploring start condition. Okay, so this randomly thing we need to remove. So we are happy with uh, mm, any episode rather, and then we, instead of updating greedy, okay, instead of improvement in the greedy way, we need to be soft here. So let's actually do that. So we have removed the exploring start condition. So basically generate an episode following pi, and then what we do, we compute the a star, which is the greedy action in this case. Now for all states we set the following: if action is equal to a star, for a star, what we do, the probability of taking that action is 1 minus epsilon plus epsilon by this, otherwise it is epsilon by this. So now instead of the policy being deterministic, we are always keeping it stochastic. So the policy is always stochastic. So you always have a chance of taking any action. Okay, so this is essentially the epsilon soft version of Monte Carlo. Any question? Okay, now let's come back to the discussion, exploring start to explore epsilon soft. So that's fine. It does one good thing, that it helps us to explore all the time. But there are some issues also. One issue is that it will always be suboptimal. I mean, it will always explore, and hence, even after you have learned enough, uh, it will keep exploring. So it will never really converge to optimality. So this all these ideas are useful. Now, mm, what is the main dilemma here? The main dilemma is, what if we always choose the best? So what if we want to learn as well as we want to perform well, right? So you want to learn the action values depending on the subsequent optimal behavior, right? So subsequent optimal behavior, that means next what would be the optimal thing to do. But we need to behave differently to explore other actions. So essentially, there is a trade-off between exploration and exploitation, as we have been, discussing about it since the very beginning. Now, this actually gives rise to a very important paradigm, which would be off-policy learning. I'll explain the picture in a while, but basically, so far we have considered on-policy learning. What is on-policy? That means we improve and evaluate the policy that we are following. Basically, we are following a policy that is generating data about the reward and which state am I going to and all those things, right? So basically, it's generating data about the environment, the P, okay, or in turn, it's actually generating data about my reward functions or values. Now, and we follow the policy and we evaluate that policy. More specifically, what we need to do for a policy, to evaluate a policy or learn, is we need to learn the value functions. To improve, we need to update our policy. Off policy learning would be, well, fine, you want to learn this policy, but doesn't mean you have to follow this policy to learn this policy. Okay, so you improve and evaluate a policy that is different from the one you are following currently. Okay, different from the one which is used to generate the data. Now, obviously, this would only make sense in the learning stage, rather, right? So, but what is essentially the theme? So, the policy that we want to learn is called the target policy, and it can be something like this. So, target policy is typically a good one. So, maybe the target policy is one optimal policy here. So obviously, okay, so the picture, just think of it as, uh, wherever you are, your goal is to get to the green point in shortest number of moves. Okay, so your reward is minus the number of moves you take, to get to the green point. Okay, so that's your reward. And reward is your final state or terminal state. Sorry, this green is your final state or terminal state. Suppose this is your game. Okay, and you can go left, right, as long as you are within this grid. You can go left, right, up, down, as well as cross in any direction. So all 8 directions are possible. So that's basically the picture. Now, so suppose the target policy could be something like this, or near optimal policy and things like that. So typically a target policy, when we want to learn something, we keep improving the target policy. But the policy we are following may not actually be that good. In fact, it is the policy we follow to select the actions at this point, and it can also be something like, you know, okay. Now, obviously, it is usually more exploratory. Now, look at this picture. Do you see any problem with this?
Red one is exploring more.
That's fine. It's the red or orange or whatever that is exploring more. That is fine. I mean, we wanted to explore more because the one of the main reasons why we want to go off policy is, we want to know what we want to also explore other things and make sure that what we are doing is better. Okay, so something that line. But there is actually another problem in this also. So basically, for that, I need to explain to you what the policy here means. So these gray, very light grays are possible actions from every state, right? So actions are up, down, and so on. So, but however, from here you cannot really go down, and these are the next states you go to, right? So these nodes are the states. The blue policy, suppose you start here. If you are here, the blue policy will deterministically go here, 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 and the orange policy will go like this. But then how can you evaluate the blue policy by going this way, right? You cannot, right? Because evaluating these states means you need to be there. You need to be at those states, otherwise you cannot evaluate that, right? So I go in one way, you go another way. I cannot really know about your experience. However, it is possible I can know about your experience if the path you have taken is a subset of the path I have taken, or the states basically is a subset, right? So something like that. So what we need is the behavior policy must cover the target policy, or in other words, it must also take the actions which the target policy takes. Now, take the action means the probability of taking those actions must be more than 0. So the picture I have drawn here is more like, you always do that orange thing from here, or in the blue policy, you always take the blue path from here. So what we essentially need to do is something like this. Okay, from here, maybe if the orange policy has all these possibilities, then it is okay. Then it knows about what happens in this blue lines, and it also knows many other possibilities, right? So this is fine. So in mathematically, what we need is that if B is our behavior policy, okay, and pi is our target policy, then I need that pi of A given S is greater than 0. Sorry, if pi of A given S is greater than 0, then B of A given S must also be greater than 0 for any S and A. So essentially, if your target policy can take some action given at being at state S, then your behavior policy also must have a positive probability to take that action. Otherwise, you won't be able to evaluate it. In fact, there is a we'll see when we derive things, it will actually be necessary as well. So let's is this part clear? Okay, so let's actually for this, what we need to do is we will follow policy B, and we want to estimate something based on policy pi. What is B and what is pi? What is a policy? A policy is a probability distribution for all states. So given any state, a policy tells us what are the probabilities of taking which action. That's basically policies are probability distributions. And that's all. Again, I remind you, that is the only thing that is in the control of the agent, right? As an agent, I can only decide what action I'm going to take. The rest of the world is not in my control, right? So then the reward or where I land up, so I press the accelerator and switch to first gear and press accelerator very floor the accelerator, right? So that I can do. I have the freedom to do that, but then the car can crash. That is depends on many other things which is not in my control, right? So somebody can suddenly come, another all these things can happen. So essentially, policies are just probability distributions. Now, what we are aiming to do is, and what do we want to learn? We want to learn the value functions, right? So we want to learn the value functions according to policy pi. That means if we take policy pi, what would be my eventual return, all right? So our expected return, this is what we want to learn. So it's some kind of an expectation. So we want to learn expectation of something or some random variable according to probability distribution pi, but we will not follow pi. We will follow another policy B, behavior policy. So this essentially means we'll follow B, and in Monte Carlo, what do? We generate samples. So we generate samples means we experience, right? So we do something, we experience, okay, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, okay, and we average over them. So let's actually look at this small piece of example, which will make it clear for you. So basically what we want to do is we want to estimate one distribution by sampling for another, estimate some quantity based on distribution essentially. So suppose here you have 70%, I mean, you have a lot of coins. I have only drawn 10 of them, but you have a lot of coins. So you have 70% 5 rupee coins. So the 5 rupee coins do not have that gray thing in the middle, or maybe it should have been the gold in the middle and gray outside. I have forgotten how it looks. And 30% 10 rupee coin. So does the 10 rupee coin look like this? Doesn't matter. Okay, so suppose those are the 10 rupee coins. Maybe I have inverted the color. Now, this is the 70% 5 rupee coins and 30% 10 rupee coins. The bigger ones are 10 rupee coins. And here I have 50%, 50%. Okay, so 50% 5 rupee coins and 50% 10 rupee coins. Now, obviously, my experiment is I want to just draw. I randomly pick a coin, okay, from this. Okay, so I randomly pick a coin from this, or I randomly pick a coin from this. What it is. So essentially, if we do that, what is the expected value of the coin that we want to estimate? So that we all know, right? So X is the value of a coin drawn from the pile, either from this or this. But this is one distribution, this is another distribution. Or rather, this gives you one probability distribution, this gives you another probability distribution. So on the left side case, suppose this is our pi. Pi of 5 is 0.7. The probability of getting a 5 is 0.7. The probability of getting a 10 is 0.3. Right? So what is the expected value here? So it is 5 into 0.7 plus 10 into 0.3. I think that is 3.5 plus 3, right? So it's 6.5, right? So expectation of X according to pi is 6.5. What will it be here? So B pi, so this is another distribution B. Now we are not used to calling a probability distribution B. So just, because this ultimately will come down to behavior policy and our target policy, right? So behavior policies are B. So suppose this is our B, then B of 5 is half and B of 10 is also half. So then the expectation is 7.5. So what we want to do is we are given this pile of coins, but we know these probabilities. Now, obviously we don't want to use the formula of the expectation. What we want to do is we want to draw from this sample. We want to draw samples from this pile or this distribution, but we want to estimate the expectation according to the other distribution. Okay, so important sampling is the technique that we want to apply. We want to estimate expected value with respect to pi of X, but we want to sample from distribution B. So let's see how we do that. So by definition, we have E of X, E pi of X, okay, that is for every possible value of X, X times the probability of that value occurring, right? Now, what we do, we just multiply numerator and denominator by B of X. So B is just another probability distribution, right? So pi is this probability distribution, B is another probability distribution, multiply by Bx. But why can we do that? Here we need that fact that whenever pi x is greater than 0, we also have Bx is greater than 0. So this we only need to do for the cases where pi x is greater than 0. If pi x is 0, then that term does not appear in the sum, right? So this only matters when pi x is greater than 0, right? And then you can actually do Bx in the numerator and denominator. And then we can actually take one of the Bx out and put this Bx in the denominator. So we can actually consider x into pi x by Bx. And this pi x by Bx, we'll write this as rho x, where rho x is called the importance sampling ratio. Okay, so pi x by Bx is an important sampling ratio, but however, rho x is not a constant. It also depends on basically the random value of the random variable, right? Now, what is this? This quantity, you sum over all x, you have a probability distribution Bx, and you are summing some quantity here. So that looks like an expectation, right? So essentially, this is then you are computing the expectation of rho x, x rho x with respect to the distribution B. So now see, we have actually, so the expectation of the random variable x rho x under distribution B. So what we have done here is we have transformed E pi x to EB of some other thing, and something which is not that different. Okay, so basically, so that means what we can do is we can take samples from B, from distribution B we can take samples, and we can, for large enough n, just this is basically the Monte Carlo, right? For large enough n, we take n samples and we compute the average of xi rho xi, right, from distribution B. And if we do that, we would have actually would have actually computed this quantity, or rather this quantity. Is this portion clear?
Yes.
Okay, good. So now, essentially what we will do is, now you can see where we are getting at. We'll follow policy B, but we will compute the value functions for pi, right? Your value function, remember, so the value function is, so what we have is target policy pi, behavior policy B. We want to estimate the value functions for S, for every state S. We want to estimate the value function which is expected with respect to pi GT. So GT is what we sample, right? So we sample GTs. We take episodes and we sample every possible GT that we get from state S. So state ST equal to S, given ST equal to S, GT, this is what we sample for state S. This we follow over many episodes, and every time we have ST equal to S, we can sample that here. So now only difference is that we will not be following policy pi, we will follow policy B. That means we cannot simply take an average of GT anymore. We have to take an average of rho GT, right? So we have to basically do something else. Now, intuitively, again, let me remind you, we have seen the coin example, but intuitively, how does it translate to policy, following policies? So essentially, when we follow some policy, what we say is, I'm right now at state something. So basically, maybe usually I sleep at 11, right? So maybe that's my policy. Sleeping at 11 is the most likely, but some days I may, with a low probability, I may sleep at 10, and some day with low probability, I may sleep at 12, 1 o'clock in the night, and all those things, right? So those are low probability things. Now, what we do is, I want to compute something according at state that now it is 1 o'clock at night, and and I'm awake. Now, according to policy pi, which is like sleep early, this is actually already pretty rare. So I'm going to get very less number of such samples. On a different policy, I could get much more of those samples. So that is why, just like the coin examples, right? So that is why when we draw samples from a different policy, we need to multiply that with the correct weight, and that weight is our rho. Okay, so on policy, what we do normally is we follow policy pi, collect samples of GT given ST equal to S. Then we estimate V pi S by averaging samples of GT. Of policy, we need to compute the average of rho GT. So that means what we need to do is V pi S will be expected value with respect to distribution B rho GT given ST equal to S. But then rho we need to compute. For each sample, we need to compute what is my rho, and that is not just a constant. So let's look at how we do that. So consider a particular episode under policy B, okay, our behavior policy starting at step T till the terminal step capital T. So how is the trajectory? The trajectory is I'm at state T, I take action T, I get reward T plus 1. Then I go to state ST plus 1. Then I take action AT plus 1, dot, dot, dot. Finally, from here, from state ST minus 1, I take action T minus 1. I get reward T and I reach the terminal state, game over. So this is my trajectory. And once this is done in normal Monte Carlo on policy, I backtrack and I compute GT for every state I see. Okay, for every state I see, I compute GT and sample it for the value of that state. Now the important sampling, there's a typo, ratio, rho would be the probability that I take this trajectory under pi by probability of I take this trajectory under B, right? So that is what pi x by bx, right? So that's what it is. So this trajectory is my x. Now, how is the trajectory determined when an agent follows a policy B? So what determines this trajectory, right? This thing happens. Agent takes action, some action following the policy, but goes to a state and gets a reward according to the dynamics of the environment, right? So basically here the policy as well as the dynamics of the environment all are important. So let's actually do the calculation. So what is the probability of a trajectory under policy B? Suppose the probability of the trajectory under policy B is P of this whole thing given now you are at ST and along the line you are going to take actions from T to T minus 1. I mean AT plus 1 dot 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 up to AT minus 1, right? So this notation is basically given AT plus 1, so all of them in the appropriate places. Now, where the actions are taken according to B, we can write this as, because this is a Markov decision process, first what is happening, I'm at ST, I'm going to take action AT. The probability of that is B of this, and then I'm going to state ST plus 1 and getting reward T plus 1. So that is, this is the P of this, basically this is my dynamics, right? So this comes from the P function. Then next step, next probabilities of going to that state and reward and so on. So similarly, this is the whole thing. And this we can actually write it in compact form, product of K from T to T minus 1, B AK given SK. This is the agent's control, and this is the this is what the environment will do for you. Now then, rho is trajectory under pi by probability of trajectory under pi by probability of trajectory under B, right? So what is the probability that this would happen under policy pi by what is the probability that this would happen under policy B? So for the B thing, we have already done it. For pi, it will be similar. So it is just the product of, in the numerator, we will have the pi thing, in the denominator, we will have the B thing. The environment will cancel out, right? Environment will cancel out. This is actually very interesting because this happens only because it's actually a Markov decision process, right? So environment will cancel out. You will be only left with the subsequent probabilities of pi of SK, AK, SK plus 1, AK plus 1, and so on by the probabilities of B. Now, these are known to us. We know pi and B. Policies are in control of the agent. So the agent knows, given a state, what is the probability of taking an action. So we can actually compute pi by B for any trajectory. But how will we do it? We'll actually not compute it from scratch every time. We'll just do the same kind of backtracking we have done so far. So this is the product, which means instead of going from K equal to T to T minus 1, we'll do the opposite. We'll do from T minus 1 to T. Okay. So when we collect samples for ST is the terminal state. We collect sample of ST minus 1 first. That means GT minus 1. GT minus 1 given ST minus 1. Right. So then we'll only have to multiply pi AT minus 1 given ST minus 1 by B AT minus 1 given ST minus 1. Next, we'll come to the previous state and we just have to multiply the next terms, right, with the already existing terms. So let's actually look at the algorithm. So the goal is to evaluate a policy pi, but following policy B. The algorithm is again, we initialize VS and S, okay, loop. Now we generate an episode following B. So the blue things are the ones which have changed from our previous Monte Carlo. So generate an episode following B as this. We set G is equal to 0 initialize, but there is a W. The W is essentially that row factor. Okay, so row we could write as R or something, but without as W. Now backtrack for T is equal to T minus 1, T2, T minus 2, and dot dot dot. Instead of G to be, so this is a discount factor. So G to be gamma G plus RT plus 1, we have a gamma WG plus RT plus 1. And we update, we update VS to be this, update the count of number of samples for this particular state, and we update W to be W times the next, basically T equal to T minus 1. Then once T minus 1 is done, you are in T minus 2, then your W already accounts for this portion for T minus 1. So you actually, so your W already accounts for this portion. So you only add the product term for T minus 2 and so on. All right. So, so this is your off policy Monte Carlo policy evaluation. Okay. So yeah, so that's, I think, pretty much what we could cover for today. And any question immediately?
So here then pi needs to be subset of B for us to.
Right. Pi needs to be subset means, yeah, B needs to cover pi. So
Yes.
policy must be able to take all actions that your target policy can take. I mean, that is intuitively also true, right? I mean, otherwise, if you don't take those actions ever, then how will you learn about the values, right? So that's one thing. But even we saw the mathematical derivations also, there are important steps where we assumed that. Okay, anything else? Okay, all right. So let's stop the recording.